Welcome back, everybody. We have another Basil deck profile in-house. And what do we have today? Yet another Royal Knight?
Yeah, we're moving through the Royal Knights really well. This is one I think a lot of people were excited for, but I think the hype kind of died down on this card a little bit.
Really fast, at least at our locals.
But it's Alphamon. It's one that I think is finding a little bit more play in Royal Knights themselves and the Yggdrasil deck than by itself, but I think put together in the right way, I think it's still a very strong OTK strategy. And obviously we were missing the Doru Gray. We got a replacement there, but we've got some other pieces to kind of fill the hole that was left by that replacement. So we're going to jump in with the Digitama. I bet you can guess what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Or Dorimon. We're gaining memory, or we're drawing a card when we tuck a card, and we're tucking a lot of cards.
The deck do?
Yeah, you're going to draw a lot off this egg. The new one is when attacking, draw one if you have 4 more sources. It's strictly worse than this card, so don't put it in. Then we'll go into the rookies. Guys, there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises in this deck.
Yeah. The deck just got a lot of, like, a couple new pieces.
We've got 4 of the Dorumon. This gains a memory when you tuck it. It is a searcher in a pinch scenario, but generally we are playing it for the inherited skill. For those of you who weren't around when this deck was super duper popular,
6,
BT 7, 8. In any case, this card does gain a memory when you tuck itself.
Yeah.
So that is something important for the for you all to know.
Oh yeah, we got our Oryukin in 8.
Yeah.
9. BT 9. BT 9, yeah.
Final answer. So we do have an actual searcher in the deck, which is Ryudamon.
Yep.
This searches 1 X-Antibody Digimon and Yuji. Spoiler, we are playing Yuji, and every Digimon in the deck is X-Antibody. So grab any Digimon and Yuji. And then a rookie that I think people aren't playing a ton of, but I think they ought to, is the Security Dorumon.
Okay.
This card is great in security. It is an X-Antibody, so it is searchable by all of our cards. The reason that I'm playing this instead of, I think a lot of people are playing Tsunorizumon.
Yeah.
I opted away from the Tsunorizumon because it costed me games a lot more than it won me games, specifically because it's not an X-Antibody.
Oh, you would just pass it.
So I think the Tsunorizumon is bad. It doesn't have anti-synergy with Yuji. It is not searchable by any of our effects. And we're getting security attack in a different way. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the line. And this card can play a Digimon out of security. So it can play either of these, or it can play our level 4, which is the new Dorugamon.
Oh, okay.
I opted for this instead of the blocker Dorugamon because it is a play cost of 4. So it specifically has synergy with our security rookie. I think if you wanted to alter this deck, you could go to the Tsunorizumon. If you were to move away from the security rookie, I would say play the blocker Dorugamon. But I opt for this one because it's a hard play for 4, so sometimes you find yourself in that situation. And really, I don't see this deck as a defensive deck. I see it as more of an OTK strategy. So I think playing the blocker is, you're never really going to be blocking on turn 1 because you really want to stay in the raising until it's time to kill your opponent. So I find this Dorugamon to be better than the old one. So we'll move into our next level 4, which again, not a huge surprise, is 4 of the Dex Dorugamon.
Okay.
So this is where we can get our blocker and retaliation from, so we don't necessarily need it on the level 4. As well as when you digivolve on a Dorugamon, you can pitch something to gain 1. We do need specific things in the trash, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And then also it gains a memory when you pitch something. So it makes your Evo, if you do Evo without the Dorugamon, it's still basically a 2 Evo, but when you do have the Dorugamon, it's a free memory. All right, we've got 1 of the Doru Gray.
Restricted?
Yep, it's banned for a reason. This card is very, very good. If we had it with the new Alphamon and with the new support that we have, I think this deck would be probably the best deck in the format.
Really?
So I think it's good that this is to 1. This is our security attack and our prevention from deletion by effects. We do have a way to make up for its when digivolving skill with our new Doru Greymon and our new Alphamon, but it's really hard to replace this security attack. So that is a very nice card. We do have 3 of the new Doru Greymon. So this one, the reason that it's better than the old Doru Greymon is it searches 3 and then tucks 1. The old Doru Grey, you just tuck 1 from hand. So this one, you're not going to lose hand advantage when you digivolve on top of it.
Filter your deck.
The bad thing about this card is it only gives prevents DP reduction for the turn. So this is specifically for your yellow matchup, your shine gray matchup, things like that. So it's a little bit more situational. And then the inherited skill is actually pretty good. It's end of turn, you can tuck an X antibody from your hand. You can just tuck 1. So if you pass them over to 1 and tuck a Dorumon, it'll pass back to your turn. Yep. If you are going into Oriuken, you can tuck something and then bottom deck it with Oriuken. Yep. So you can save a little bit of memory there if you have the hand size.
You can add a new...
You can add a new Oriumon.
Oriumon, that's it, yeah.
So this card is obviously not as good as this one, but it is called Doru Greymon, which is really nice. For our deck's Doru Greymon, this is our answer to floodgates in this deck. When you, if it has a Doru Greymon in sources, you can delete a level 4 or lower.
Oh, nice.
So memory blockers are very problematic for this deck. So having these is our answer to that, as well as it has the same effect as the deck's Dorugamon in that when you pitch something, you gain 1. So just another way to get another card underneath your Alphamon for basically 0 memory. In the level 6, we just have 3 of the Alphamon. You only need 3 because you only need 1 per game, basically. And with the amount of search and with the amount of draw in this deck, you're going to find 1 pretty much every game. Having 4, I found felt clunky because we needed room for other cards in this deck. This card is really good. You can tuck a card, an X antibody card from your trash underneath this card to prevent 10 play cost or higher Digimon from attacking.
Wild.
It's really, really strong. A lot of this format is big single stack decks.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be stopping a lot of stuff from attacking.
Save you a turn. At least 1 turn.
At least 1 turn. And it pairs with some options we're going to play later on the line, which basically is going to stop anything from attacking. And then it also is sort of our replacement for this Doru Greymon's Digivolving skill, because once per turn, when this deck would leave the battle area, so we have another card that protects against Lonky and Chaos Degradation, you can bottom deck one of your sources to prevent that from happening. So if you would get Arrested Dramond, if you would get DP reduced, if you'd get...
Arrested Dramond doesn't leave the battle area.
True.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
In any case, if any of these things would happen, you can tuck one, or you can bottom deck one of your sources to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, that's great.
So we have another form of protection on our Alphamon, which is really important on the OTK turn if we have bad luck. Then we'll move into 4 of the Oriumon.
Probably the strongest card in the deck.
The reason that we're up on the Oriumon, a lot of lists you'll see 4 and 3, which I prefer to have at least 4 of the Oriumon because we need to see multiple of them per game. Because every Oriumon we have 1 in trash and 1 in hand, then we can definitely swing 3 times. And swinging 3 times is very important in Alphamon because if we have security attack +1 and we chip them with a rookie, then they have 4 security, then they're in lethal. So I want to see multiple Oriumons per game, 1 in trash and 1 in hand at the very least. Then on the top end, we're down to 2 of the Oriuken. A lot of lists will default to 3, which I think is perfectly fine. But like I said earlier, I see this deck more of an OTK strategy than anything else. And so the reason I just have 2 of the Alphamon Oryukin is because I prioritize killing my opponent rather than controlling the board.
Yeah.
So I see Oryukin more as a way to either gain a bunch of memory to build up a second stack in the raising, or as a way to get rid of the opponent's threat. When in reality, what we should be focusing on is getting a bunch of Oryumons in either trash or hand, and then swinging a bunch of times.
That 16k printed is now.
16k is great. You don't need a lot of DP buffs on it to get over anything. But generally, we want to stick to our core strategy of OTKing rather than board control. But there are times when Oryukin does come up as a way we need more memory to do more damage, and so we only opt for 2. So that's it for Digimon. We're going to move into our Tamers first, and it's going to be starting with the 4 of the Yuji, excuse me. The reason I like Yuji more than any other Tamer in this deck is because not only is it memory gain and drawing a card when we leave the raising area, but also it's more damage, because if we swing with Alphamon and we already have an Oryumon under it, we can swing with the Alphamon and unsuspend.
Yep.
And then use Yuji effect to tuck another Oryumon, and then unsuspend.
Yep.
So that's sort of how the combo functions, in that if you have 2 Oryumons underneath your Alphamon and you swing, it activates them both at the same time.
So you don't want to do that.
So you have to layer them in a way that they proc individually. And Yuji is our way of doing that. Which is why some people will be surprised to see this, but only 3 Cool Boy.
Oh, I thought that was going to be a Coda.
One of the interesting things when thinking about this deck is you'd instantly think to put in 4 Cool Boy. And the reason that that's bad is one of my friends is a really big Alphamon fan. He's been playing it for pretty much as long as he's been playing the game. Cool Boy is never going to pay itself back in this deck. Let me explain. When you play a deck like Black War Greymon, it's not an OTK deck. It's a big defensive wall. And so when you're playing Cool Boy on turn 1, you're setting up your defenses because your Greymon's a blocker, your Evos are pretty expensive. You're not gaining you're not going up your line in one turn like you are in Alphamon.
Right.
When you play Alphamon, you're only going to use Cool Boy once. And that's rare for a Cool Boy deck, because in the Black War Greymon strategy, you're going to be using it a bunch of times while you slowly grind your opponent down.
And draw a ton of cards.
But in this deck, you're really only going to use it on the turn that you go into Alphamon. So I'm down to just 3 of the Cool Boy because it's only going to gain us 1 memory. So it's a rare instance which Cool Boy doesn't pay back for itself. And that's actually the only Tamers I run in the deck.
No Coda.
I don't run the Coda. I think the Memory Tamer is too slow for the deck. Anytime I found myself wanting to play Coda, I'd rather just play Black Memory Boost.
That makes so much.
So 4 Black Memory Boost for me makes a lot more sense, because the only weakness that this deck really has is not finding the entire line. So Black Memory Boost does 2 things. One, it finds us our entire line.
Yeah.
And on the Alphamon turn that we're going to kill our opponent, we need a bunch of memory, because in a lot of cases, you are going from 3 to 7. And this isn't green. Our Digivolve costs are what they say on them.
Yeah.
So we're going to need a lot of memory, and Black Memory Boost is going to do that for us.
Go.
So I mentioned earlier that we needed a way to replace the Doru Greymon. The first is the Digivolving skill we replaced with the Alphamon. So Alphamon has protection on its face. The inherited skill we're replacing with 2 final Zubagon Punch.
Oh, I love that card.
I really like this card because in this deck specifically, we're always going to be at 13k, because our only level 4 that we want to have in our stack is giving us plus 1000, and this Alphamon is 12k. The reason I'm not playing the old Alphamon is it's 11k.
Yep, doesn't hit it.
So to get into that DP threshold, we would need to have 2 of these. And so that's a little bit harder to do. We'd rather just tuck the Oryumon. So the 3k from the final Zubagon Punch is going to get us to that DP threshold where we're doing another security check.
And reboot blocker.
And reboot block. Hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Yeah.
But if it does come to being a reboot blocker, we have a couple of cards that go with it. The first is Congo, and the second is Breath of the Gods. Depending on your scene, this can go one way or the other. Congo is very good for your Shine Greymon matchup. It's very good for your Red Hybrid matchup. It's very good for your Blue Flare matchup. A lot of these things are swinging with smaller bodies, and they're swinging a bunch of times.
Yeah. Bloom Lord?
Bloom Lord? Well, Bloom Lord's really only swinging with the Bloom.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But Congo is really strong in those matchups.
Yeah.
Breath of the Gods is stronger specifically against Mirage in this format. Anyone still playing Ulforce, or people who are playing Hydramon in the Bloom Lord strategy.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Breath of the Gods is really good in that, as well as if we do not kill them, we can just Breath of the Gods and then reboot. And then if we have the Dexterugumon on that turn, we're a retaliation blocker with reboot, and we have one level of protection from deletion. As well as, I like Breath of the Gods a lot, because out of security, it's better than Congo.
Yeah.
Because out of security, it simply says you cannot be attacked as a player. Yeah. So this is going to stop a lot of people on their OTK turn if something has gone horribly wrong and we haven't built up a stack by then. Yeah. So I think the only thing about this deck you could necessarily change is you could go 1 or 2 up on either of these. Or if you just wanted to go to a full OTK strategy, you could go up on the final Zubagon.
Go 4 Zubagons? Because those do go to hand out of security, which is...
Yes. All of these go to hand besides the Breath of the Gods. And so the last note I want to make about the deck is if you are... well, 2 things. The first is that you'll notice no X-Antibody option. I don't think it's needed in this style of the deck because... we're basically trying to get enough memory that we don't need to use its effect to go into Alphamon or Oryukin. We basically want to have the ability to kill them on that turn. So I don't think the X-Antibody option is needed in this deck. That will change when we get X-Antibody Protoform.
Yes.
But until then, we'll just stick with that. As well as, if you want to play in the Ultimate Cup, I think you have to take out the cool. I don't think you have to take out the cool boys. You do. Yeah. You could add in more rookies. You could add in Coda.
Yep.
Or you could add in more Breath of the Gods because you're for sure going to be seeing Mirage. Yeah. And this is a very good answer to that.
Right on, man. Well, thanks again. One more Royal Knight off the list. I think we got like 2 or 3 left, and stay tuned because we're going to get those to you. Catch you in the next one. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, see you soon.